Welcome everyone. So Alexander, Paulie, Peter, perhaps, and feel free to pop in with a Q&A. What I'll start with, just assuming that you are not familiar with personal data accounts, is to give you a sense of the high-level reason for being. And so in short, what personal data accounts enable in terms of a shift from the typical collect it all, store it centrally approach that most organizations take is the ability to return the individual ownership of personal data. And that, of course, requires a bit of definition. What is personal data? But to return that to, Peter was saying he was looking for the opening session. Sorry, not that. That occurred yesterday, Peter. You can find that, a recording, you can find that on the website. So personal data accounts, as I was saying, are a method by which you can return the individual legal ownership of data to the individual. So as opposed to, in an enterprise context, the data lake, which is, there are many terms for this, but as some of you may know, there are typically methods whereby large enterprises, be it a Google, a Facebook, or your insurance company, will accrue data from a multitude of sources and roll those into different stores, different buckets, if you will. And those buckets become successively increasingly larger in order that they can run analytics and produce some sort of output. It could be a risk score on you as a customer of the insurance company. It could be understanding your psychographics, if it's Facebook. But these are massive multi-million, sometimes multi-hundreds of $1 million endeavors. And so the shift that Dataswift, and for context quickly, I lead sales for Dataswift, that we, Hat Lab, and the Hack Community Foundation are addressing is the shift away from that toward an opportunity for individuals to reclaim ownership of that data. So what you have with a PDA is a virtual server in the cloud that contains storage and contains computation ability. And so you could, from that insurance company, take all of the data referring to your past claims, your past premium paid, all of that personally identifiable information, any accident details, photos that you have snapped about, that unfortunate fender bender you were in, and pull that into your own personal data account, again, in the cloud under your direct control in terms of the permissions to deal with that data, as well as legal control. So you are now someone who can contract that data back to, let's say, that insurance company, or back to that technology company, back to that mobile carrier, whatever the scenario might be. What we then enable is a series of APIs, application programming interfaces, that you as a developer, as a builder, as an application provider, as a startup, can issue these personal data accounts to your users, and then can build functionality, services, and capabilities on top. And so imagine a shift from a scenario where you're building an application that assumes a central repository of data to one where you build the same user experience, the same kind of fantastic application, but instead of going to a central repository sitting within your startup, your organization, it calls out to the individual user's personal data account, which again, they have control over. They have the ability to permit or deny access to each element of data, and they also have the legal ownership and the ability to contract that data. So that's the fundamental sort of systems architecture shift. And Marios is one of our engineers and is here to answer any specific questions you may have about details of implementation. So does anyone have any other questions they might wish to ask about the APIs, the technical details, or how PDAs operate in general?
I have one, which I know is relevant to a lot of people. So a lot of the apps that people are contemplating here involve location data. Marius, can you explain a bit more about location data in the Hat, both in general and then also in the particular context of this hackathon?
Yeah, sure. So if we start with the Hat app, what we tried to do was to minimize as much as possible the battery consumption, because
Marius,
yes?
can I pause you right there, and can I get you also to describe the difference between the personal data account and the Hat app, because that won't be intuitive to a lot of people unless explained. Before then, you launch into the location data answer.
Okay, sure. So the Hat app, technically, it is the client, as we say, or the application that will show the data in your Hat personal data account. And by doing that, obviously, you have all the privacy, and it's your data. You own the data. No one else is gonna, steal it, as we've seen so many times happening over and over again. And again, in the context of the location, though, in order for the Hat app to gather the locations, you need to have a mobile app. Yes, so that's why the Hat app is always only available in the iOS and Android, and those two can actually gather the locations that then will save them to your personal data account. Yeah.
It might be worth adding just quickly to explain that the Hat app, as we call it, really think about that as a dashboard to integrate all of the multitude of applications from third parties that are interacting with your personal data. So if Marios and I each have personal data accounts, which again exist up in the proverbial cloud, and we then have, let's say, the next iteration of a Strava app, which is our cycling and running app. If we have a new social networking application, like we need one of those, right? If we have a opt-in, informed consent-driven tracking app that is allowing us to contribute data in the case of the hackathon and of COVID to permit certain organizations to see our movements, our GPS coordinates. Any of those scenarios, multiple applications, many to one, many applications, one PDA for me, one PDA for Marios, one PDA for you. And from there, sorry, seeing some unfortunate but expectable spam pop up here. We'll deal with that. We offer this so-called Hat app to enable you to see all of that data unified in a dashboard. So